Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 166, IO 531d to 532a. Io has no idea why he thinks that Homer is better than the other poets, but he simply has a feel for Homer which he doesn't have with other poets. He seems to be confused between style and content, and it seems that Socrates is trying to disambiguate that confusion. Socrates has already tried to talk about subject matter when he engaged the prophets and their techne, which required Io to admit that, at least in prophecy, an expert on prophecy, the mantis, is preferable to any poet, be it Homer or Hesiod. When it comes to the truth about things pertaining to prophecy, the moment Socrates returned to talking about the poets without any subject matter, that is, any subject matter for which there is a techne, Io resorted to claiming that the other poets haven't composed their poems in the same way as Homer has done. And it would seem that Io has returned to talking about style. Io just refers to a difference in composition here, but Io has already made it clear earlier that he thinks that Homer is better, and this point Socrates now clarifies. Timen kakion? And Io answers, polyge. What? Worse? By far. Homeros de amenon? Amenon mentoi ne dia. And Homer better? Better indeed by Zeus. This would explain to some extent why Io has a soft spot for Homer, why he is actually a good rhapsode when it comes to Homer, as opposed to all the other poets, and this is because he thinks that Homer has composed his poems better than the other poets have composed their poems. In other words, as I mentioned just now, Io has returned to style, although he still confuses style with subject matter, which is why Socrates keeps bringing the conversation back to techne, because techne involves subject matter. He makes another attempt here. Last time he used the prophets and the techne. This time he's going to use the arithmetician, the art of numbers. Uk un o phile kephaleion, hotan peri arithmu polon legonton, hestis aristalege, gnosetai depu tis ton eu legonta. Vemi, O dear head Io, whenever many people are speaking about number and one says best about number, isn't it the case that someone else will recognize the one speaking well? I affirm. Why does Io affirm that there will be someone who will recognize that the one speaking best is actually speaking well about number? It may be that Io identifies with the person speaking best, albeit about number in this case. Io speaks best about Homer. The person who will recognize that he is speaking well, in Io's experience, is the judge in the competitions. They have judges who decide which rhapsode speaks best. What's interesting here is that the judge judges who speaks well, not most beautifully. When it comes to number, the one who speaks well is the one who is accurate, the one who tells the truth. This is not the case in rhapsody. Socrates carries on. Potron un ho autos hospercaitus kakos legontas e alos ho autos depu. Is it then the same person who will recognize those speaking badly or someone else? The same, of course. Again, Io has experience of this from rhapsody competitions. The same judge decides who is speaking less well, or even badly. It's also a logical necessity that the judge who decides who is best must also have decided who is less good. Uk un hoten arithmetician techne echon hutos estin nai. So the one having the art of number is this person? Yes. The art of number is the arithmetike techne, what we would call arithmetic. In other words, the judge has the relevant techne. Ideally, the judge in a rhapsody competition has the techne of the rhapsode. What that techne actually involves appears to be the subject matter of this dialogue. What is the techne of the rhapsode? It might seem obvious to us that someone who has the techne of number, the art of number, the arithmetician, is the one who would be able to distinguish the one who speaks well about number from those who speak badly about number. It would appear to follow, and it isn't said here, but it would appear to follow that a rhapsode having the techne of the rhapsode would be the one best suited to be able to judge who speaks well or who speaks badly in poetry. It actually isn't so clear, because the one speaking well in poetry should have the techne of poetry, but this should be the techne of the poet, such as Homer. We would then have another question whether the rhapsode requires both the techne of poetry and the techne of rhapsody, or whether the techne of rhapsody includes the techne of poetry, or some other relationship between the two. If these are two different techne, in what way do they differ? If they are the same techne, in what way are they the same? Fortunately for us, this isn't the concern of Socrates, at least not yet. Tide, hotan polon legonton perihugienun sition hopoiaestin, heistis aristelege, potron heteros mentis ton aristolegunt agnositai hoti aristelege, heteros de ton kakion hoti kakion, e ho autos, deilon depu ho autos, tis hutos, ti onoma auto, iatros. What then? When there are many people talking about healthy foods, what sort of things there are, one speaks best. Will there be one person who will recognize the one speaking best that he is speaking the best, while another one will recognize that one speaking worse is speaking worse? Or the same person will recognize both, in other words? Clearly the same. Who is this? What's his name? A physician. Uk une en kephalaio legomen hos autos gnosetai ae, periton auton pollon legonton, hostis te iu lege kai hostis kakos, e me gnosetai ton kakos legonta, delon hoti udeton iu perigetu autu. Hutos. So, in a nutshell, we say that the same person will always recognize when many people are talking about the same things, who speaks well and who speaks badly. Or, if he won't recognize the one speaking badly, it's clear that he won't recognize the one speaking well about the same subject. Just so, we may ask ourselves why Socrates repeats the exact same example yet again. Instead of using the arithmetician, this time he uses the physician. We may say that he's simply applying induction, looking at various examples and then drawing a conclusion from the similarities between the examples, a general conclusion. In this case, the judge who decides who's talking best, who's talking not so well, the judge has to have the techne of that particular subject. This may well be part of it, but there is a big difference between the arithmetician and the physician. If you really want to judge who is a good physician and who is a bad physician, you don't look at how they talk, you look at what they do. I'm not saying that a good physician always saves his patients. That's not correct. Sometimes patients die even when they have the best physician looking after them. But a physician who is all talk and no action clearly doesn't save anybody at all, doesn't even attempt to save patients. A physician with the iatrike techne will be able to judge the actions of a fellow physician and decide, regardless of the outcome of a particular case, whether that physician is good. We should remember that techne is not simply theoretical, but it is also practical. A technites, a craftsman, applies the body of knowledge which he has to his subject matter. Since numbers are not physical, an arithmetician does simply talk about number. Is rhapsody similar to either of these techne?